Hi folks, today I want to share quite a curious story and hopefully also a story that will motivate Sony to go into this new direction and revive some of the ideas they had a decade ago. Because as you know, Fujifilm, Leica and even Ricoh cameras are selling hot, so those more retro looking compact cameras are really popular in Asia particularly, but also becoming increasingly popular in Europe and the US, particularly when it comes to Fujifilm. Every camera they launch, they sell in huge numbers. I'm in contact with many stores, bigger stores from all parts of the continents, and they tell me always the same story, that Fujifilm sells, Leica obviously sells, and the Ricoh is also selling hot. And this is not true for Sony cameras, with one exception, okay? So all modern Sony cameras like the Sony a7 IV, Sony RX1R II, they sell okay, but they're not as requested, as high as those Fujifilm, Leica and Ricoh cameras. The only exception is a camera that is 10 years old. And this is the only camera that actually is increasing value on the used market. It's the Sony RX1R II. The demand for this camera is increasing. This is the only camera of the many Sony cameras that we have gotten in the past 10 years that is increasing in value. And today I want to talk about the reasons why this is the case, what's the value increase, and if you own the camera, what's the forecasted value increase for the next years, and what Sony should do if they plan to announce a new successor. The Sony RX1R II has been announced in 2015. What makes this camera really special is that after 10 years, this is still the most compact full-frame fixed-lens camera with integrated viewfinder you can get on the market today. This camera is way more compact than the Leica Q3. You can see a couple of comparisons here, and it is as compact as, for example, the Fujifilm X100VI that is an APS-C camera. So this is quite an impressive achievement from Sony, made 10 years ago. Sony has not made any new camera version of this for some weird reason. I don't know why they stopped the project. And yeah, what's funny is that since 2020, the price of the camera actually increased. It did go as down on the used market to $1,850 in 2020, and now the price is up around $2,400. So $450 more you have to pay now to get this camera, and the trend is going up. And probably if there is no successor coming, it will keep growing and get closer to $3,000. And this is quite curious if you consider this camera back at launch was priced at around $3,200. Still 1 year ago, the camera was still available in new on Amazon Beach Photo for the same price. So there was never a price up on this camera. Now you cannot get it new anymore. And this also increases the value of the used version. And so I expect it in the next years to go up further if there is no successor coming from Sony. So why is the price increasing on this camera? As you know, there's a general hype for compact cameras that are easy to carry with you, but there are also 3 more reasons why this camera is very popular. First of all, it's still, as of today, the most compact full-frame fixed-lens camera you can buy. So this is the only full-frame fixed-lens camera that is truly pocketable. The Leica Q3 with the big lens is quite a lot bigger and not as easy to carry. And it's still the most affordable fixed full-frame camera you can buy. So it's still less expensive than a Leica Q3, and there are no other full-frame fixed-lens camera from Canon, Nikon, Sony at the moment. So this is a pretty unique spot for this camera, and that's why also it's selling hot. And the third reason is, of course, that there is no success of this camera since 10 years, so there is no other option than buying this camera, and Sony's asleep on the wheel, not making a new version for some reason. And I hope that Sony will try to dig into the data of the Sony RX1R II, why it's selling so hot, why people are looking for it, and make a successor, a worthy successor. And I think they don't even have to spend a lot of money to create a beautiful successor, because in my opinion the Sony RX1R III shouldn't be that much different from the Sony RX1R II. So here comes the list, my wish list for a future Sony RX1R III. The first thing they have to do or not to do is change the design. I think the original design is perfect. They really have to aim for the most compact full-frame compact fixed lens camera on the market, and so they don't have to change anything. It's already perfect when it comes to the design. I wouldn't change anything. So keep the body, don't go into a fancy route and spend millions on a new design. For me, it would be fine if it looks the same, maybe just some minor updates when it comes to the buttons and so forth. So on the layout, there are possible changes to be made, but this is fine what they have right now. Also, the lens I think is great. The Zeiss lens is very compact, it's sharp. Maybe there could be an update. I personally would prefer to have a wider angle lens, but this is my personal preference. I'm no big fan of 35mm. But even if the lens would be the same, I would still be okay. But I guess Sony would be able, with the new lens design they have right now, to make the lens optically superior than it is right now, or keep the size a tiny bit more compact, because now the lens design has improved in the past 10 years. Sony is making quite compact lenses, and maybe they can even make it a tiny bit more compact, would be even more impressive. This is one of the few changes they should make. I think the more important changes are, of course, add an AI chip for the autofocus. Because the autofocus on the Sony RX1R II is really slow. This is something they should add. I don't know how much space it would take to add an AI chip, so that's probably one thing where they really have to engineer the shit out of this to put in that AI chip, but I think they should really consider doing this. When it comes to the sensor, I think using the Sony A7R V sensor would be fine. It's good enough, and also it would give you the option to, even if you have a 35 or wider angle prime lens, to crop into 50 or 75mm, something like the Fuji medium format camera GFX100 RF is doing. They have a crop lever, lets you quickly crop into the image to have something like a 50 or 75 or I don't remember 90mm, but this is something the Sony RX1R III should have the possibility to quickly crop in. And if you have a 61 megapixel sensor, you can really crop in quite a lot and get closer to the subject and create an image that is more like a portrait or gets closer to whatever you are shooting right now. Sony should also definitely keep that integrated pop-up viewfinder. The last two things that obviously should be improved are the battery life, which really sucks on the original RX1R II, so definitely there should be a battery with more capacity, and of course also have the new menu, but that's a given. Maybe one addition, having proper film styles on this camera. Something like Fujifilm, don't call them picture profiles, or like Lumix did, LUT, call them really film styles. Maybe in my dream world, having Kodak film styles built into this camera would make it super. So have, Kodak portrait styles, different film styles of the long legacy of Kodak into this camera would make it super appealing, I think, for many photographers out there and the youngsters that are looking for that kind of very particular style. The wrap up here is that Sony should learn from their own success. The Sony RX1R II is the only camera keeping value or increasing in value and is in a higher demand right now. In general, that market is booming, and they wouldn't have to do a lot to make this camera better. And if that camera then is a success, they could also consider making a lower priced APS-C version or even a 1-inch RX camera that has the same kind of style and features. So they could expand on that success if it really works out. So I don't see a true reason why they shouldn't do it, and I'm still surprised why Sony isn't doing it. By the way, if you have rumors about a possible RX1R III, because I got some wild rumors the past years that Sony was considering making a successor, but I didn't get anything since then. But maybe you heard something from Sony managers or friends that work for Sony, then please contact me using the email address and contact form. I'm really curious to hear if Sony is really working already on it, or if they're still on hold when it comes to RX lineup, because officially Sony managers say the RX lineup is not dead, but maybe in the meantime something changed and there is something more solid, and if that's the case, I will make an update. So again, subscribe to the channel and hit the notification button if you don't want to miss any update about the possible Sony RX1R III. So now folks, it's your time to let me know in the comment system what you think about the current Sony RX1R II success, if maybe you know some more factors why this camera is becoming popular that I didn't mention in this video, and also let me know what you hope to get from a possible Sony RX1R III. So give me your ideal spec list, because maybe Sony will go through the comment system and see what your reaction is. By the way, even Nikon and Canon should consider making full-frame fixed-lens cameras, so if Sony is not doing it, then maybe Canon and Nikon will do it in the future. That would be also okay for me, as long as we push forward to get more of those kind of cameras. Okay folks, that's it for today. See you soon.